Remedy may have started out with the incredible Max Payne series, but over the last decade or so have really started to cave out their own little RCU, the Remedy Cinematic Universe. This universe usually revolves around horror, supernatural and psychological happenings to seemingly ordinary people, and it wouldn't have been possible without one man who started it all, Alan. So, in the spirit of Halloween, let's revisit this spooky classic, nab all 51 trophies and ask the question, can I plat Alan Wake? Before we get into this though, I'm going to save you from something truly horrifying. You're not subbed to this channel. Don't fret though, as with one quick click you can be. Thank you, and back to the video. We start with our titular hero driving in the dead of the night. Things aren't that peaceful for long however, as soon we hit a hitchhiker who came out of nowhere. Things immediately get weirder when the headlights go out and the hitchhiker is suddenly missing. Looking for the mystery man, we start to feel compelled to make our way towards a lighthouse not too far from us. But not before picking up our first collectible though, a nice refreshing thermos of coffee. There'll be a whopping 100 of these to find throughout our playthroughs. I'm not going to be showing all of them for obvious reasons, but just so you know, I'll be collecting them all as I go along. Back to the spooks. And it's not long before our mysterious hiker appears again, this time dripped out in shadows and carrying an axe. We Scooby-Doo our way out of there, but our hiking nemesis isn't playing fair. He soon turns into a goddamn tornado, and what makes things worse is that Alan has the stamina of an elderly sloth. Lucky for Alan though, we're soon helped by a mystery man called Clay. Now this genius's smart idea is to move Alan into a log cabin to protect him from the tornado while he stays outside to shoot it. Things don't go well to say the least. But just as things look bleak, the voice of God himself beckons us to walk into the light. Instead of finding heaven however, we find a gun, a flashlight and our first fight. Now this is where Alan Wake's unique gameplay comes into play. The enemies we find are all going to be protected by a shadow. We need to first burn away that shadow by mainly using our flashlight before we can shoot and hurt them. Taking that into account, we quickly dispatch the hiker. Happy with our first kill, God leaves us alone, but not before rewarding us with our very first trophy, Follow the Light. Looks like the kill didn't stick however, as not long after this the hiker re-emerges in his tornado form, chasing us across a bridge to the lighthouse. Inside we receive an ominous warning before Alan wakes up, revealing he was all just one of his very common nightmares. I mean, Christ mate, mine are just usually about being back in high school and not knowing what my next class is. Get some therapy man. We actually find ourselves on a ferry with our lovely wife Alice to visit the ironically sounding name Bright Falls. We meet some of the nice locals, with some being a bit more intense than others. You see, Alan is a famous writer, on par with the likes of King himself, but after a few years of writer's block has decided to come out to this quaint little town straight out of Twin Peaks to unwind. We first need to stop off at the local diner to find the landlord to the cabin, Carl Stuckey. Inside we find the creepiest walking red flag of a horror villain ever, who hands us the key to our cabin in place of Carl. Alan, acting like he's never seen or read a single horror book before despite being a horror writer himself, happily takes the key and heads out, missing all the warning signs from Carl. We arrive at our beautiful getaway and make quick work with getting the power back on, earning us the Let There Be Light trophy. Things aren't peaceful for long however, as after getting into a tiff with Alice over our writer's block, we hear calls of help from her coming from the now blacked out cabin. We rush back to see the place trashed and Alice in the lake. We dive in after her but then wake up in a crashed car with no memory of how we got there. We see a gas station not so far from us and seeing it as our best bet to call for help, start heading towards it. In the woods however, we soon stumble upon not only our next mystery but our next big collectible as well, the manuscript pages to a book we have no memory of writing. A book even more strangely depicting events that have and have not yet to happen to us. We soon stumble upon the once helpful Carl, who now seems to be enveloped in the shadows from our nightmares. We can do nothing but run for now, but it ain't long before we find a gun and our trusty flashlight. We fight our way through the forest, even earning us the float like a butterfly trophy along the way for dodging with style. Before then having another run-in with Carl. This time we put him down, earning us the Nordic walking trophy. With Carl out the way, we then arrived at a trash gas station, giving us a chance to call for the sheriff. We then try and explain our situation, but with our head wound and the fact that we are talking about a cabin on a lake that hasn't existed in quite some time, we do look a little crazy, or at the very least concussed. And the sheriff seems to be in the right in thinking that, as when we do return to the lake to show where we had been staying, it's gone. After this revelation, we earn our next trophy, Bright Falls Finest, for ending chapter 1. We get checked out by the local doctor before going over the details with the sheriff. Well, the details that we want to share with her, without coming across as crazy. We're interrupted however by an unknown caller claiming to have Alice. We sneak out at the man's orders to find Alice's driving license. The kidnapper ain't messing around here. Before heading out to the meeting point, we get a call from our agent, Barry. He says that he's been trying to get in touch with us for a week now. In fact, he got so worried that he flew out to Bright Falls himself. Back in the station, we have a run-in with another doctor, Emil Hartman, a creepy guy who has a clinic in town that specialises in working with artists and their unique issues. Knowing that Alice and he had been in touch to discuss maybe even getting Alan a spot in his clinic, Wake pops in one, and he's soon saved by Barry before going in for round 2. We tell Barry everything in the car. He may not believe us about everything, but he believes that Alice had been kidnapped and agrees to help. We drive over to the national park to wait it out before we can go and meet the kidnapper. With it now being the dead of night again, however, we have shadows to fight against, and it looks like they've already hit the ranger station. We try and find a key in the power to help out a very injured Rusty, the park ranger, but it is too late. Not only has someone destroyed the circuit breaker, but they went back to finish the job on old Rusty. We fight off a few shadows before coming face to face with a now shadowed version of Rusty himself. Now we unfortunately have to put down this good man, earning us the Under a Thin Layer of Skin trophy. We can't mourn him for long, however, we still need to meet the kidnapper. But not before finding another stash of supplies hidden in the forest, our 5th one in fact, earning us the Finders Keepers trophy. The trophies don't stop there, as right after I get a lucky 2-for-1 shot, earning me the aptly titled 2 for the price of 1. It was also around that time that I performed my 20th slow motion dodge, earning me the Miss by a Mile trophy. I also managed to defeat 4 enemies with 1 flare, earning me the Come One Come All trophy. We take a small break from trophies now, as after taking a fall from an attacked gondola, we find ourselves surrounded and defenceless. We are quickly saved, however, by the kidnapper of all people. Now this guy may have saved us, but he's still a prick. He leaves us defenceless, bar a flashlight and some flares, and he wants us to use these while he shoots at the enemies. So this is what it feels like to be the escort in the escort mission. It's weird. Being defenceless and relying on 2010 AI to fight means that we take a lot of hits, and just as we're about to die, we pop a flare, giving us some breathing room and earning the back I say trophy. During the escort mission, we stop off for a nice cup of coffee, earning us a damn good cup of coffee for finding our 25th one. We have a big standoff with a bunch of Taken, holding them back with flare after flare whilst our dick of a kidnapper shoots at them with the accuracy of a stormtrooper. Taking a moment of rest, we demand to know where our wife is. The kidnapper first demands that we bring him all the manuscript pages though, as he seems to have already read a few pages, and after seeing those pages come true, needs to know what happens next. Alan goes 2-0 with another resident at Bright Falls after popping him in the face, getting the upper hand and picking up the gun, but not before the kidnapper flees however. Before giving chase, we funny enough pick up our 25th manuscript page, earning us the Paging Mr. Wait trophy. We hike our way through some woods again before finding ourselves some wheels. Here is where we get our next trophy, as after running down 15 of the Taken, we earn right of way. We get a call from the kidnapper once again demanding the manuscript. We persuade him that we haven't finished writing it yet, which does buy us a couple of days. We return to Barry, saving him from a sequel to Hitchcock's Birds and filling him in on the situation. Whilst in town asking the locals if they can name the kidnapper, Barry gets a call from a weird sounding Rose. She says she found the remaining pages and to come on by to meet her at her house, finishing off chapter 2 and earning us the Park Ranger trophy. We arrive at the trailer park, getting filled in by Barry and all the weird stuff that's been happening in Bright Falls over the years, namely about a man called Thomas Zane, who used to live on the island where Alice went missing. He was a writer too, whose work has seemingly all disappeared. So is he, in fact. They say he went down with the island back in the 70s when a volcano underneath it erupted, sinking the entire thing. But all of that is just old urban legends. Right now we need to concentrate on getting our hands on the manuscript. We meet up with the very obviously possessed Rose, who manages to spike our drinks, knocking us out. Whilst passed out, we have a dream talk with what now has been revealed as Thomas, who says that the darkness has been using the body of his wife Barbara, the creepy woman in black we met back at the diner. Some ominous words from both parties later, we alanwake a day later in Rose's bed. Outside, Alan runs into more trouble. With them being in there for a day, the landlord who showed them to Rose, Randolph, got worried and called the police. Well, FBI agent Nightingale has been on the scene, looking to speak with Wake, and took this as a chance to bring him in. I say bring him in, but he must have took a page straight out of the American Police Training Handbook and started opening fire pretty much right away, forcing Alan to flee into the woods. We do the usual here, power up some gems, pop some lights, fight the Taken, all while dodging the crazy FBI agents. Speaking of Taken, in one of my fights, I used a newly acquired flashbang to beat 4 of them at once, earning me the Sound and Fury trophy. And not long after that, I found and shot my 5th stack of cans, earning me the Carney trophy. Things start getting a little bit more hectic here as the darkness are now taking over random objects to poltergeist them at me. The craziest being a freaking bulldozer, and for taking down this possessed machine, we earn heavy metal. Alan has finally made it to the next meet-up spot with the kidnapper. We wait all day, but he's a no-show. As we're about to give up all hope, we get a call from him. He's changed the location, and now we have to rush to get to Mirror's Peak. As per usual, we fight our way through the Taken and Possessed. Speaking of, after destroying our 20th possessed object, we popped "They're here." Sticking with the fighting theme, not long after that we defeated our 50th Taken using flashbangs, popping the Thunder and Lightning trophy. And after that, we have to fight a whole arse train, earning us the Iron Horse trophy. Another quick one after that, as we defeat our 50th Taken with a flare gun, earning us the What Light Through Yonder Window trophy. Back to the story now, as we soon meet up with the kidnapper, only to find him a blubbering mess. It looks like Barbara has already got to him. He admits that he doesn't even have Alice and to leave him alone, but he is then sucked up into a tornado and killed. Alan too, but with some quick thinking he pops a flare which saves him. He's then flung into the water, only to then be saved by a mysterious man. Chapter 3 down, earning us the Wheels Within Wheels trophy. Now here's where I took a little detour from the story, as there's 1 or 2 speedrun-esque trophies in this game, one of which is in this very chapter. We have to get from the mines to the meeting point within 30 minutes. Now I failed this on the first time as I was collecting all the coffee and the scripts and what have you, but I was confident I could do it on my second run. And I was right, quickly popping the Meet the Deadline trophy. I even earned another trophy whilst going for this one, Energized, for putting my 100th battery into the flashlight. Back to the story now, we awake to find that it was Hartman that saved us. He tells us that we've been a patient of his for quite some time. He says that we've been suffering from delusions and mixing up our writings with reality. Now we obviously don't believe him, but we are trapped here nonetheless. We get a tour of the facility with Hartman, listening to him babble on and on about our delusions, all of which seem to have stemmed from Alice drowning in the lake. Some of the other residents start making a scene, giving us a moment of peace. Seeing this as our chance, we start sneaking around looking to escape. We first stop off at a little office where we can listen to some recordings. Listening to all of them bags us our next trophy, medical opinions. Next door we hear a familiar voice and open it up to find Barry. He had come looking for us, but Hartman and one of his goons had knocked him out and locked him in here. In Hartman's office, we find our manuscript and are soon confronted by him. He quickly drops the act and begs that we work together. Before we can put this creep out of our misery though, the darkness appears and does the job for us. Now the darkness is everywhere in this facility now, and we are pretty defenseless. We use the lights where we can and start making our way through towards the exit. On our way through, however, we stop off to catch one more episode of our favourite show, Night Springs, popping the boob tube trophy as we do. Outside we get a gun and a flashlight from Barry and fight our way through a hedge maze, including a fight with the taken Hartman himself. All of this fighting nets us our next trophy, as after defeating our 50th taken with our trusty shotgun, we earn It's Not Just a Typewriter brand. And not long after that, we defeat our 100th taken with our revolver, earning a 6-gun scribe trophy. Escaping the maze, we start driving towards the nearby Anderson farm, but a rock slide takes our car off a cliff, leaving us alone and defenseless in the forest once again. We fight our way through the dark once more until we make it to the farm. Now here we have one hell of a holdout against waves of taken, using a lot of pyrotechnics to help us, all of which ends with us popping the Child of the Elder God trophy. Now not long after that, while still exploring the farm, I turned into another local radio segment, earning the KBF FM trophy. Finally making it through the farm and into the Andersons' estate, we find a message left for us via one of the old rockers' songs. It's a song relating to the crazy lady we first met at the diner, Cynthia. We decide to stay the night and visit her tomorrow, but Barry, being the genius that he is, decides that this life and death situation of us versus the dark is the best time for us to get hammered on the strongest moonshine ever concocted, and Alan stupidly agrees. This does, however, give us a drunk, out-of-body flashback to what happened the night on the lake. Alice did go into the water as we remember, but afterwards we was approached by Barbara, who led us to the typewriter and made us spend the next week writing her a manuscript that would make her immensely powerful, as in Brightfall, artists' works do seem to come true. We only managed to escape the situation via writing in Zane, who used a small amount of light to free us from Barbara's hold, giving us enough time to escape, leading to the car crash we awoke from in chapter 1. We awake from this revelation to find that Dick Agent Nightingale, finishing chapter 4 and popping the Perchance to Dream trophy. We awake in the cells with a smug Nightingale and an annoyed sheriff. Clearly seeing how far the deep end Nightingale is now and how unjust our incarceration is, she opens up the cell to let us out. Nightingale starts losing it, but then recognises all this from a scene he had read in our manuscript. Before he can pull out the page to check it, however, he's dragged out the exit by an unseen force. Now the sheriff, being a legend that she is, listens to what we have to say and begins to help us, no questions asked. We head out the back and start fighting our way through the streets to make it to a police helicopter. Whilst on the streets, I make a quick stop back at the diner to play a little ditty on the jukebox, earning the Drunken Bowfoot trophy. After more fighting through the streets of Brightfall, we arrive at the fire station and have one final standoff whilst the copter is being prepped. Here is where we bag our next trophy. After having killed our 50th taken with the hunting rifle, we earn Taken Season. We get away in the copter and start heading towards the power plant where Cynthia resides. Getting close, however, we see that the skies are protected by the birds, and a lot of them. They force the sheriff to fly away, but not before we fall off. On the ground, we're back to being a little defenseless, but nonetheless, I still managed to defeat my 20th taken using environmental damage, earning the Collateral Carnage trophy. We fight our way to the power plant and make contact with Cynthia. She mentions that she's been waiting a long time for us, to give us something that will fight the dark. But first, one of the transformers seems to be damaged, and it's messing with the reserve power. We have to venture out and fix it. We do just that, earning us the Gatekeeper trophy, before then heading back to Cynthia, who leads us down into an unused pipe, all the while going into more detail about Zane and Barbara. We check in with Barry, whose situation doesn't sound great, forcing us to leave the pipe to go rescue them. We see the crash copter and the birds that caused it, and after quickly defeating them, we coincidentally earn the "If it flies, it burns" trophy. We soon find Barry and the sheriff and lead them to the dam to meet back up with Cynthia. Here is where we find what Cynthia calls the well-lit room, and hands us the item she's been holding on to for all these years. It's a clicker, one that Alan used to use to comfort Alice whenever she was scared of the dark. We end chapter 5 there, earning us the Lady of the Light trophy and quickly moving us into the final chapter. We start the chapter with a flashback of Alan back in New York. Now, nothing too interesting here, but after turning on the TV, we earn the couch potato trophy. Back in the present, we start making our way back to the lake. As we do, however, we can clean up a couple of trophies along the way, starting with a nice and easy collectible one. As for reading our final sign, we pop the Bright Falls Aficionado trophy. Next is for open up all the caches throughout the game, and after popping open our 30th one, we earn the... wait, why isn't this... Shit! We'll come back to that later, as not long after that, we should have found our last manuscript page for this difficulty, hopefully earning us the... oh thank god, the picking up after yourself trophy. Well, that was a disaster. I was meant to have collected all of my thermoses of coffee by now as well, and wouldn't you know it, I've also missed one of them. Not all is lost though, as we have made it to Cauldron Lake, and even better, we made it here without having fired a single bullet, earning us the Gunless Wonder trophy. As you can imagine, the darkness here is at its all-time powerful. Lucky for me though, I'm armed to the teeth with flares, and after firing enough of them into the heart of the tornado, I pop the Tornado Wrangler trophy. This gives us the opportunity to dive into the water to go after Alice. Inside the water, armed with our trusty lighter and clicker, we fist Barbara, beating her for good, seemingly, and write the ending to this story, an ending in which Alan went into the water after Alice, saving her, but never emerging himself. And with the pop of departure and hard-boiled writer, this brings us to the end of Alan Wake, but not for good, as not only do I have to complete the game again on the hardest difficulty, but I have those pesky missing collectibles to find. Before that tedious task, I decided to go for the much more easier trophy. I teamed back up with Sarah the Sheriff and fought my way back to the copter again, this time without dying once, earning me the idyllic small town trophy. Now normally it would be a pain in the arse to replay the entire game to find a single collectible, and well, it still is, truth be told. However, as I mentioned, I needed to replay Alan Wake anyway, this time on the Nightmare difficulty, which I did, with not much trouble actually. All the while I was picking up all the manuscripts that only appear in this difficulty, reopening all the caches and picking up all the thermoses again to find the missing one of each. And you know what happened at the end? My gameplay corrupted, losing me the last couple of hours of footage of my Nightmare run. Worse still, I somehow still haven't found all the cache boxes, meaning I need to replay the game one more time. And so I did, meticulously gunning for each cache one by one, hoping upon hope that this hadn't bugged for me. But wouldn't you know it, the old saying really is true. Third time's the charm. I finally popped the aptly titled Every Nook and Cranny trophy along with the Plat, bringing my Alan Wake journey to an end. And what can I say? It's another solid game from Remedy Studios. I may not always love everything in their games, but I can't deny the creativity and solid titles that come from them, and Alan Wake is no exception. It is unapologetic with its influences. In fact, it wears them heavily on its sleeve with pride. If you like anything like Twin Peaks, you will love this game. I feel like anything negative I have to say about it, such as its clunkiness and its janky dodging system, is purely just an outdated thing. It'd be like if I replayed one of the PS1 Resi titles and moaned about the tank controls. I highly recommend this game. I even recommend going for the Plat. Sure, I may have got unlucky with the collectibles, but hopefully that won't happen to you. Just follow a guide a bit more closely than I did and you'll be fine. Nightmare mode is also nothing to worry about. Well, those are just my thoughts. What are yours? How'd you find Alan Wake? Did you go for the Plat? How's the sequel? I still haven't played it truthfully, and making this video really does make me want to go and check it out. Who knows, maybe I'll make a video on that. Keep the conversation going below, I love to hear your thoughts. Please do leave a like and a sub if you enjoyed, it really does help me out and it'll keep you in the loop for when our next video comes out. Until then, take care.